Hello, I'm Wendy Dabrusin, certified divorce lending professional with the Divorce Lending Association. And today on our show, we have Lisa Schnitzer with In Good Hands, and she is located in Austin. And I'm super excited to have her on here because she offers a great service. She's a divorce concierge. And so Lisa, welcome, and tell us a little bit about you and your background and what you do.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that. So, Divorce Concierge is a pretty broad title for what I do, but let me backtrack and just say I've been in the corporate world most of my life, managed a law firm for 15 years, and then one day woke up and said, I need to do something for different people. And I started my own business. And so part of my business is consulting for operations and businesses. And then the other part is devoted to people going through a divorce, whether it be men or women. And I absolutely am passionate about helping them process some of the most important paperwork that they will ever process in their life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how long have you been in the divorce in this space?
7 years, seven
That's
years in
awesome.
May. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how do you assist someone that's going through a divorce? What do you help them with?
Right. So it can take a lot of different forms, and I come to them and I meet them where they are and what they need. If I am referred by an attorney for a current client of theirs, they might give me a list of documents and say, "Hey, I need all of these documents filled out by, you know, June 1." And usually it's when the person is in a panic.
Yeah.
So I'm there to kind of calm them down, go through the questions logically, explain if I need to. I am not an attorney. I do not want to act like an attorney. I answer the questions in my lane, and we make a list of questions for their attorney if there are any. And I just go through the paperwork. Some of it's painful, some of it's hard, some of it's I don't have the information, help me find it. So I might have to be a detective and track down some banking or investment information. So it just depends. I've helped people with budgeting information. I've helped people process mounds and mounds and mounds of paperwork. And I also work with divorcing people who are in custody battles with different kinds of proof that you need for that kind of situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like someone going through a divorce, they have so much stress on their plate, anxiety, lots of things going on in their head. And I'm sure having you to help them work through that is a huge benefit, just to kind of take a lot of it off their plate. So why did you, so give me an example. So if maybe an attorney doesn't hire you, if a client is just starting down this path, and contacting you, I know when we talked before, you had said, it actually can help save them money because I'm kind of there to answer any questions. And you have a law background as far as your work goes, right?
Yes, I managed a litigation law firm. The main thing is I understand the terminology that most
Right.
people don't, wheretofore, heretofore, and all of those things. I can help kind of break that down into regular speak so that it's not so intimidating.
Yeah.
And really, I see my job as being empathetic, but being an action person. That they hired me for action. So I kind of have this little way of going through it with them to draw them into thinking of it as a transaction. We are making a transaction. We are making proof for our transaction. And so if I can get them to drop at least some of the emotion, it helps them focus on the task at hand.
Yeah. And you're not a therapist. You're
I am
not.
not a therapist. I am not a therapist, but um, I went through my own terrible divorce
Yeah.
and custody issues with no help. There was no kind of resource network like there is now. And I remember sitting on the floor saying, if I could ever help a person not feel so helpless, I never dreamed that that would be in my business, but it
Yeah.
was in my heart that I really wanted to help people not feel so bad and lonely during this time.
Yeah, this is awesome. That's why I was so excited to have you on here. We met up, a little over a month ago, and I had no idea that that your role even existed. And I think, like you said, I think you saw the need and you created it, because there is a need for just someone just to talk to help them, just to help them through the process. To sometimes they don't even know what questions to ask their attorney. So that's where you can come in and help them, and then also help them get organized. So you said a little bit about, kind of seeing a need, but why did you decide to, initially decide or ultimately decide to work with divorcing clients?
I helped a friend on a personal level with some of these issues during his divorce. Like, he called me in a panic. Can you help me? Can you go? Can you, just walk through this with me? And of course I said yes. And when all was said and done for everything that he needed, he said, you should add this to your business because you're passionate, you're so good at it, and you're so helpful. So I never thought of it as a business until he made that suggestion.
Yeah. And are there any, like, this is a national, podcast. Do you know of any others that are like you in the nation?
I don't. What I've found is that most people don't like the minutia of life anyway.
Yeah.
And that happens to be my strong hat.
Yeah.
And so the details of whether it's a person's business or their personal business, I don't know, that's just kind of my jam. And so
Yeah.
I think as a rule, people don't want to dig into that. People
Yeah.
don't want to dig into those painful areas. And yeah, so I do believe there's a hat for everyone, and that's clearly mine.
Well, and you also probably save them a lot of money, right? When instead of going to their attorney with every question, they can ask you. Now, of course, you can't give legal advice, but you can actually, help them understand, or if it's something easy that's not giving legal advice, you can help them with, right?
Right. And mostly I help redirect questions. So if it's not something that I can legally answer, I'll say, okay, question number 2, that's what you're going to ask your attorney. So here's the other thing. People are kind of afraid of their attorney in general terms. A lot of people are like, I get so nervous when I go in there and I forget what I'm supposed to ask. And I say, you're not going to forget when you work with me, because we're going to have a solid list of questions and you're going to be very direct. It's going to save you time in there. You're not going to and ah, and you're going to have very direct, specific questions that apply to just you. And so it does give them a little bit of confidence to actually go in with a piece of paper and not go in like, what's he going to ask me? What am I going to say? And I always encourage people, one of the first questions that people ask me is, do I have to tell my attorney everything? And I always say, yes, you do. And here's why. He or she is advocating for you. And without the full knowledge of what's going on, they can't do their best job. And believe it or not, people, find that surprising.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to disclose everything about your life, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's really hard for people. And
Yeah.
especially if you're asked a direct question that you have to answer. And I'm like, you got to answer.
Yeah. And, on the topic of saving money, people still have to live their lives. They still have to work while they're going through this. And so I could see a benefit of someone who's a very, maybe a busy executive, or maybe works hourly and can't take the time to handle all of this, where you can go in and, kind of help them and give them organized. And I'm sure it gives them a ton of peace of mind to confidently go into their attorney and sit down with them and knowing the questions to ask. So I feel like what you're doing is amazing. And every divorce is different. I'm sure every case is different, but someone who's just starting down this path, what would you recommend that they do as far as their first few steps?
So that's an ideal time to actually arm yourself with all the information that you need to even go in to an attorney. And, also wish I had that information in my arsenal, but getting all your paperwork together ahead of time is so much stress off the person. they're going to ask for everything that you have. So you may as well be acquainted with what you have, figure out what you don't have, ask questions about different things. But it's basically a gathering of the information about your life that's so important, because you're building a new life going forward and you need to know what you have before you can proceed. So meeting with a person prior to that is the ideal scenario, because we can go through lists of things that you're going to need. So you're going to be overwhelmed if you hear it from me. We're going to be more overwhelmed when you hear it from the lawyer, and on top of everything else that you're doing. So it's kind of just a pre-planning session that arms you with a lot of data.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's probably one of the most important sessions that you have with them.
Yeah,
Just to kind of
unfortunately,
get
I
them
don't often
prepared.
get people on the pre-planning stage.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do. I come in at various places. Like I come in when they've been given their first request for production and they're like, I don't even know what this means, to they've already dug in, they've already been answering, and now there's second and third rounds and they're just ready to throw up their hands. So
Yeah.
I've come in at many different places.
Yeah. And like you said, you keep them redirected, don't let them sit in their feelings for too long. I mean, sure, it's an emotional time, but you're not paid to sit there and listen to them cry,
Right.
as much as it's needed, of course. But it's nice that you have, you're able to redirect them and have them focus on the task at hand, and ultimately that's going to give them peace of mind and be able to calm them a little bit, just to know that you're there to help. So this is awesome.
Right.
Do you have any memorable clients that you've worked with, or challenging?
Um, I mean, I think the most memorable was an elderly gentleman who was about 83, but the process had aged him quite severely. I sort of came in the middle to end section, and he was very defeated. He was mostly sad.
Yeah.
And I think he touched my heart a lot, because I could actually like look at his face, and he just had so much trauma about, why didn't I do this? I should have done that. I could have done this. But his gratitude to me was immense. And it just really overwhelmed me when he was thanking me. I handed him a file folder at the very end, and he said, what is this? And I said, this is everything you need to keep about your personal business, keep with you at all times. And I mean, you would have thought I would have given him like diamonds.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone had ever really spent that kind of time with him to
Yeah.
tell him, it's going to be okay. You've got what you got. Here it is. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, he definitely touched me.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've had clients at all levels of organization, some who know where everything is, and some where you have to go online and help them find
Oh
their
yes.
passwords and all of that, right?
Yeah, I have spent many, 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 many hours digging up stuff. But I will tell you this, the other person, whoever I'm working with, rarely even holds a pen. I write everything, I type everything, I upload everything for them. So all they have to do is listen to me and think about their answers, and I record everything. So I really try and make them not feel like they're in school, or somebody's going to be grading them, because I'm doing the work. I'm
Yeah.
writing it down, I'm explaining and writing and asking probing questions, but really all they have to do is sit there and answer. Yeah.
You're their personal divorce assistant, basically, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, what's the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
That's a good question. I would say that we are all really the same, no matter what our job is, no matter what our course of life is. We're people who want to feel good about ourselves, feel cared for, respected for what we do, and understood when there are problems. It's life is great when everything's going good for you, me, anybody. But if you hit a snag, as in a divorce, you can fall really far. and that is the time of your life when you really need people that can pick you up. And I decided when I started my business that I would serve people. This is me being able to serve the humans that have served me in my life.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the most important thing, is that we're supposed to be here for each other.
Yeah. And it's so important because I'm sure this is so much more rewarding to you than working at the corporate job, right?
Oh, 1,000%. Yes. It's a whole different thing, like, yes, I was needed there, but not like this. And I don't feel this sense of accomplishment there that I did now, even if it's, an hour or 2 hours worth, it just, I feel like I'm doing good work for someone.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we will wrap it up. Lisa, I appreciate you sharing your valuable time with us today. I have so much respect for what you do in your organization. I can't even imagine what it takes to do what you do. Where can someone find you if they're looking, if they need some assistance throughout a divorce?
Well, I do have a website, and it is in good hands, plural, tx.com. www. I don't guess we have to say that anymore. And my contact information is on my website. They can also read about me there.
Awesome. Any final thoughts?
I want to thank you for asking me to do this interview. I think you're doing great work in serving the community in your aspect. And I just think that there's greatness in numbers, and you've got great teams helping you. And I'm happy to be part of that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lisa Schnitzer, in good hands. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.